All right, then we'll continue from here. Hopefully, I've cleared it up on the next one, so it shouldn't be a problem. This is another one. And this one deals more with something that we've been arguing not only in Black male studies, but right here on YouTube as well, as far as intimate partner violence in the Black community. And we've been arguing for years using data that intimate partner violence in the Black community is often bi-directional. But there's also a little subtle narrative that a lot of people overlook often when it comes to intimate partner violence. In other words, sometimes you'll have a woman be the aggressor, often actually, according to the data, that tends to happen. It's not till a man responds before the clock gets clicked. In other words, when a man finally responds, even in self-defense, even if it's just holding her, that's when people start to consider that the abuse has taken place. So what she's done prior to that moment becomes irrelevant. What he does, even in self-defense, becomes the problem. So here's an example of what I'm talking about.
You disrespected, right? My shit. You still picking my shit? That nigga smoke. You're disrespectful. You're disrespectful. Okay. Come on. Disrespectful. I don't care. Stop picking on my dress. You don't care about this me? That's me. You got my shit. You got a beard right there. You'll be right there. You trying to fucking funny, my nigga. Nigga, I don't hit females. Stop. Bitch, stop touching me. Nigga, I don't hit females. Yo, come on. I don't hit females. Come on. Where's he hit me? I'm trying to stop it, right? I'm trying to stop it. No, you didn't. Yes, he did. See me?
A woman hitting you is one of the highest forms of disrespect there is. You gotta get rid of her immediately. But a woman hitting you in front of people, not only does she not respect you, but she is disgusted with you because she deems you as weak. And the worst part of this whole situation is everybody sat back and let her do it. This is a good example of what society often does. Ignore women's poor behavior in relationships and just demonize the men. When she was getting her shit off, somebody was laughing in the back. Nobody intervened. The moment he attempted to restrain her, the other guy swoops in automatically. Wow. Yo, it's a dirty game. Stay focused though.
Real talk. So I wanted to share that with y'all because there's a lot to that, right? So even if you couldn't hear it, the sound wasn't the greatest, even regardless of whatever sound issues I may be having. But he made it clear, she was disrespecting him. She kept going, right? She started to put hands on him. He took it. He didn't swing back. When he finally put hands on her, he didn't hit her. He pushed her against the wall and he held her to restrain her. And that moment, immediately, first thing we saw happen is what guys are pointing out in the comment section, right? The white knighting, right? Somebody immediately comes over and almost tackles him, even though he's not hit her, and it didn't look like he was about to. He was restraining her, really out of self-defense. And the first thing other men do is come attack the man in question, right? But nobody had anything to say to her, and nobody had anything to say. They were laughing in the background. There were all kinds of things going on, right? So you had a couple of different things happening all at once, especially in regard to this whole question of intimate partner violence. And as I said, now the way this would generally be recorded, especially if somebody calls the police, at least over the last few decades, it would be considered an act of abuse on his part, right? The mutual abuse aspect of it may get chronicled in the data, but it's not what hits the newspaper. It's not what happens when somebody has to go to jail. It's still often the man that has to go, even though she was completely confident in her ability to initiate violence, had no concerns about repercussions from him or anybody else in the room, was not interested in hearing anybody try and calm her down, including him, right? She was entitled, knowing full well. You have those kind of situations jump off of people that are well comfortable knowing nobody's going to touch them. They know it. Because if he does, he knows what the repercussions are. And you actually have women like this that are convinced that men are afraid of them. They're convinced that they can physically dominate men. And they'll walk around with their chest puffed out. They'll brag about how they punched on men. I've heard them do it, even my students. But it's not that men are afraid of you. It's that men are afraid of the repercussions of what happens if they lose control, right? 10 seconds of rage, 10 seconds of unchecked self-control or lack of self-control can have you in jail for years over something you may not have ever done before in any other situation. especially if you got dudes who've not been around violent women and you get one with one for the first time and she starts swinging on you and you're not used to that kind of thing. It's not something you grew up seeing. A few seconds of lack of self-control can have you locked up, can have your reputation damaged, can get you fired from your job. There are all kinds of repercussions, and women will often overlook those repercussions and turn it into, yeah, I'm that alpha, I'm bad, he's afraid of me. And it's even more frustrating for men to hear, because they become not only entitled but arrogant at times. Not all women, but many of them can and become that. And men have to stomach that, knowing full well it's not about her, as far as if there's any fear at all involved. It's about what the legal repercussions can be. So again, a lot of the violence in the Black community is bidirectional, but when you consider what bidirectional means, right? Violence coming from both sides in a given situation, that still doesn't offer you different narratives, right? One narrative that goes, that's virtually not talked about is how men are often physical when it comes to restraining someone or self-defense. But that's still considered abusive if it involves hands being put on someone else. But it's not necessarily the case. Even if it's considered bidirectional, it doesn't mean that he's necessarily attacking her. It may mean that he put her against the wall and he's restraining her. But as far as the letter of the law, sometimes that's interpreted as a form of abuse. Be careful, fellas. And just like the gentleman in the video said, the narrator, if you find yourself with one of those women, cut it short. It's not worth it. I don't care how good the sex is. I don't care the possibilities and the potential, all the things you dreamed, all the things you thought could go down. It's best to leave. It's best. So just putting that out there.